can't blot out of your life man's inhumanity to man. It's always with you. It's violent and it's gut-wrenching, and it's all of those things you really don't need in your life. A war's a bit like I suppose, a bit like a motor vehicle accident. You have the same thing. You have the violence of the crash of the vehicles, and then you have the violence and the vulgarity of people being severely injured. The difference is that being in a war is a bit like being in a car crash on a daily basis, and it's not the most pleasant experience.
And when I was at Narromine, ready to start flying, that air gave me trouble, and I went on sick parade. And on sick parade, Mari was there. She'd had something done to her toe, and we met several times there, and I plucked up courage to ask her if she'd like to go out with me. Now, Mari was 18, and Joyce
was 20.
Oh, sorry, 20. I was 18.
You were 18, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyhow, she did come out with me. We probably went to the pictures or had a meal in town. And to walk from Narromine Air Force Base to town, we had to walk across a cow paddock with an old dilapidated barbed wire fence. And on our way back to camp, getting over the barbed wire fence, was where we had our first kiss.
Oh.
Yes, Guy was an inspiration because he was my uncle, but he was only 10 years older than me, and we had a great bond of friendship, and he went off to the war. Did very well as a bomber pilot, bombing Germany at night time. And I suppose he was an inspiration to me, that when my time came, I turned 18, I wanted to join the Air Force. Now, it wasn't entirely due to Guy, because the infantry don't get a nice bed to sleep in at night time, whereas people in the Air Force, if they're fortunate, they go out and they do what they have to do, and they come home to a hut and a bed and somewhere to eat. So, in a way, I think it's a sort of privileged lifestyle compared to the poor old Army boys. We're a bit soft, I guess, in Air Force and maybe Navy to the poor old Army, so
I understand.
that might have had something to do with it.
Stoked.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely stoked. Imagine learning to drive a car and being completely capable of doing it, and you want your freedom, and then being told that you're never allowed to drive.
Good example.
So you want to do the job that you've trained for. So.
I remember that day vividly. And it was filled with interest, excitement and remorse. All those emotions probably went through everybody's head. What have I let myself in for? Why am I doing this? Surely you can find something better to do with your life than getting on a ship and heading off to war. Well, it's too late now if you can find something better to do with your life.
And then in 1959, they asked me to come and join the army, because they needed drummers in there, and my first camp was at Singleton, and that was breathtaking. And the first time I ever wore a kilt, where you get issued, but you don't get issued with anything else. And if I can say, and that was very embarrassing when I went into Singleton camp. Into the mayor invited us in the city, and I had to jump out of a truck, and the kilt goes up, and everyone's looking at you. So that was the embarrassing part of it. For initiation, the army. From there on, you never look back. Yeah.
Some years later, I was in Sydney, and my life was in tatters at the end of my second marriage. I picked up a letter from the letterbox, and I opened it up, and it was typewritten, and it said, "You may not remember me, but one day in Vietnam, I was riding with you guys. I'm an American, and we went out on an operation with you, and we got caught in an ambush, and you saved my life." And he said, you came over in your armoured personnel carrier, and you called out to me, "You look like you could do with a ride." When Channel 9 did This Is Your Life on me, they brought Steve and his wife and his 2 kids. And I was, I was so touched, as I am just in recalling it. Steve came out and we shook hands, and he said, "Oh, thank you so much for saving me." And then his wife, and Steve brought his wife Annabelle and Jordan and Alex. And Annabelle, Jordan and Alex came out, and they turned around. And Annie said, "Thank you for my husband." And the kids said, "Thank you for my dad."
Everyone lost friends on our trip, and and I think that's part of what you have to work through, and you need to appreciate that it's harder for the families than it is for us, and I feel more for those people. They're more affected than I am as an individual for having lost a mate. So I think it puts the onus on you to sort of harden up and take the positive out of it. Remember who they were and what they did, and that they'd be proud, that they've joined a really respected history that Australian soldiers have put before them. As much as it's difficult to lose people, they went down fighting, and they went down fighting for a good cause, and every one of us volunteers to be there and is aware of what can happen. And I think the best we can do is, as the ones who make it back, is to take the most positive aspects we can out of it, and be happy and continue to live our lives for those blokes.
Yeah, the most unpleasant thing about that was I'd only been back in Adelaide a few days, and I was unfortunate enough to be driving along behind a car that had struck a young girl that had run out in front of a bus. So, yeah, there was just no escape from it. She'd said to her mother, "I'll go and put the kettle on, Mum," apparently, and got off the bus and ran in front of the bus and run straight in front of the car. And she had serious crush fractures of the chest. I tried to resuscitate her, but it was limited in what I could do. I knew she was gone, but I still kept giving her mouth to mouth, waiting for the ambulance to arrive, which seemed to take forever. And then when the ambulance came over, I just said to him, look, she's gone. And unfortunately, I'd said it in a whispered voice, but the mother still heard me. So that made it even worse.
Heartbreaking.
Mm.
You know when you know something's wrong, you really do know something's wrong, but you just don't know what. And that's the way I was feeling. I didn't believe I needed help. I'm a big man. I'm physically strong. Mentally, I thought I was invincible. I didn't need help. I was the help. We all think we're an alpha male, especially in the job that in the army. Yet you have to think that. They teach you to be decisive. They teach you, to make decisions, to stand your ground. And the PTSD is one of those things that you can't stand your ground because it comes at you from all sides. Your mind is the enemy.
You get the very mild cases, and a lot of people have PTSD and you won't see it in the community. It's a very secretive sort of thing. They'll show it more towards the family in the privacy of their home, to the ones that are actually right out there in the face and getting in trouble with the law. I have a person who, when he doesn't drink, and one of the offshoots of PTSD can be alcohol abuse or dependence. When he doesn't drink, he functions quite normal, but when he goes on a bender, then he'll throw a carton of beer down like I throw a can of soft drink down, and he just goes ballistic. Not so long back, the police were called in and they had to tase him 4 times to stop him. He goes into the Currumbin clinic, he dries out, comes out, and he's quite good for another 6 months. There's no right or wrong way to fix this, but at least in defending DVA and the government, they're at least trying all sorts of different ways to make it a little bit easier for the soldier, and I applaud them for that. It's great.
All in all, you never knew from day to day whether you were going to be alive tomorrow. You're frightened because you never knew what they were coming up to. You never knew whether they were going to have a Barney and stick a bayonet through you, or you didn't know. There was no security, there was no sensible in anything. Life didn't mean anything.
I got my logbook out and I wrote everything down, and I taped it, and then I rang up the psychologist. He wouldn't do it at Penrith because everyone would know tomorrow. Ron Workman, first grade football expert. I rang him up and he said, how much time do you need? How much time do you want me for? And I said, well, 2.5 hours and I'll pay you. He said, what do you got? It's got all these tapes, out of bed now, and I think I need a bit of help. And so I got the train down, and
I had a schooner at the Burwood pub. I was at the station. I walked down, and I think you can remember Burwood. It goes down, there's a park on the left-hand side, the psychiatrist on the right-hand side. I walked in there and gave him the tapes and walked back up the Burwood pub. There was about 6 schooners. I came back and he walked out the door and he was as white as my shirt. And he said, Ronald, I can't help you. And I said, well, I need a bit of help. He said, I can't help you. And he gave me the tapes back and I said, well, you better tell your comrades or your institution that there's going to be a lot of people following me. He said, you serious? I said, I'm bloody serious. So I got up the bloody station, I missed the train, went back over to the pub again, stayed there for a couple more, and I threw the tapes out the window.
No.
Yeah. Yep. Straight out.
Living in fear that at any minute you could die 24/7 for more than 3 months. That's it. That's all it takes. 3 months and you're likely to have PTSD for the rest of your life. 6 months you will. They're still sending our diggers away for more than 6 months at a time and then not realising that it's cumulative. So 6 months, 3 months off, 6 months, 3 months off, and they're building, and then they're wondering why they're doing so badly.
Getting back here and finding my family had ostracised me, that they didn't want to talk about it, and were telling everybody else that I didn't want to talk about it. So I was never allowed to get out what was inside me. Yeah, it just sort of left me in limbo. There was nothing. I was out of the Air Force, of course, at that time. So there was no real help. I went to my local doctor and they said, what's PTSD?
We've got to catch this early. If they suffered a trauma, and if their family are finding that their husband, brother, daughter, wife, whatever, if they're acting inappropriately and acting out of the norm, to please come and get help. Because I desperately don't want any serviceman or woman to go through what I went through and lose so much.
So there was only Dad and I and Mum listening to this, the BBC News, which always came over at 9 o'clock at night. And as we were sitting there quietly, and then it came in, this is the BBC calling, England is at war with Germany. And I said, I'll always remember Dad. He said he just could not believe it. He said, I thought we fought the war to end all wars. And here his sons and all our friends gone. That was the toughest part.
But when you went to Germany, there was nothing left of it. It was pathetic. The people were starving, really starving, and a cigarette would have brought you the world. That's what it was. It was pathetic to see. I think the average German was just like the average person, like the English and like ourselves. I mean, they were told to go to war and they went to war. You know, the average fellow was average German I spoke to. They weren't bitter or anything like. They had bad memories the same as we had.
He was a changed man when he came back.
And I didn't know what PTSD was until I worked over the road. And then when you think through your mind, you think, well, yeah, how can a man go to war, see the things they see, and still be that same person that went away?
One of the great reasons that Vietnam veterans have suffered so long, and probably will till they die, was that for so many years we've been told that the most important thing that ever happened in our lives was a waste of time.
You mentioned that part of the healing processes and part of the things like PTSD that people are going through, I think those days now, Remembrance Day and Anzac Day, they're kind of vital and they're part of the rehabilitation process for us, because it just basically signifies a day for us all to get together, and it's for all of us to remember what went on in a healthy environment, because you've got everyone around you and supporting you. So the day now becomes a commemoration as well as part of a bit of rehab, just to be with the guys you care about and share those experiences. So they become just that much more important for us.
Well, what I do on Anzac Day, I mean, this is the way I spend it. I take the phone off the hook and I lock the doors, and I have from the dawn service here until it finishes in Brisbane or Sydney or wherever. And that's my day of weeping.
I'm saying to you now here, enjoy life. The moon belongs to everyone. The stars so bright above belong to everyone. There's no need to be miserable, is there?
Some people think that to remember something is a passive occupation. But sometimes we have to actively remember, lest we forget.